everybody to Fort Bend Family Promise TV research project.
So the question we were mainly trying to answer was, how has the coronavirus pandemic affected the homeless youth population in comparison to a non-homeless youth population? We essentially analyzed the intersection between youth homelessness, the coronavirus pandemic, and mental health to understand how the needs of the homeless youth have changed due to the pandemic and what services and resources would support their needs. So to answer this question, we created an anonymous survey and distributed the survey to two different groups. One group included the Family Promise youth population. And by the way, Miss Etta and Miss Vera and the others from Family Promise were instrumental in getting the survey in the hands of the homeless youth. All right, the other group was a group of non-homeless high school students known from our friend group who completed the survey online. The surveys were handed out and completed last summer, 2020. Interestingly enough, we noticed that about 64% of the homeless teens who completed the survey were African American. And this coincides with national statistics that show that African Americans are considerably overrepresented in homelessness. So as Isioma just previously spoke about, I feel like a lot of people are not aware of the impact that online learning is having on youth who do not have access to computers or laptops or the internet on a daily basis. An effective learning environment cannot be provided if the proper supplies are not available to every child. And right now, according to the survey, not everyone has access to a computer. These are developmental years for youth, and any obstacle that prevents them from learning is not acceptable. Also, people are not aware of the impact of COVID on homeless youth and their families. During a pandemic, typically people are worried about making sure they have their masks, gloves, sanitizers, meaning that they have their appropriate personal protective equipment. What we learned from the survey is that 100% of the non-homeless teams had the personal protective equipment. However, almost 11% of the homeless youth did not have their personal protective equipment. Also, the pandemic has had an impact on job loss for many people. For the non-homeless youth, about 7% of their families had a job loss related to the pandemic, whereas 75% of the homeless youth's family had a job loss related to the pandemic, which is a massive impact on homeless youth and their families. In addition, there was a decrease in the homeless youth's desire to pursue higher education, and some reported that this was due to their family's job loss, whereas 100% of the non-homeless youth were still planning to pursue college.